Great. Okay, thank you. This is Diane, and I want to thank all the speakers for their presentations. Those were excellent. I'm not going to take up very much time because I want to make sure we have enough time for questions, which I am sure you all have a lot of questions. In this set of summary slides, I just wanted to take a step back and kind of look at neuroscience and technology as potential neuroweapons, and just get you thinking a little bit more in the context of this. On my slide 2, I've borrowed this actually from Jim. Jim alluded to this in the very specific case of what we think may have gone on in Cuba. But if we take a step back and look in a broader context, we can look at neuroweapons in kind of 2 large categories, the soft and hard weapons. And typically in the case of hard weapons, physical weapons, we tend to think mostly about chemicals and biologicals, and so the point here is to also include in this neurotechnologies in the form of devices or potential hybrid devices. Jim alluded to this as well, although it's unlikely in this case. It's something that we may be looking at in the future. On the next slide, I just wanted to point out the kind of diversity of this potential threat in terms of the targets. The people and or warfighters could be targeted. And there could be a wide variety of users, so not just state actors, but potentially terrorists or individual criminals or lone actors. And we could, at least we've seen this in other areas of neurotechnologies, a growing DIY community that's interested in using varied neurotechnologies on themselves for different reasons. We could see different scopes of effect. So there could be very focused targeting individuals or more indiscriminate effects in targeting larger groups of people. I also wanted to make a point that in mentioning these neurotechnologies, these neurotechnologies are being developed in some cases for very beneficial therapeutic uses. We've seen one incident that, okay, they're being used in insecticide or getting rid of pests around the home. And so that legitimate programs for creating these kind of neurotechnologies could mask very illegitimate ones. What might be goals for using these? I've listed some of them here. Again, we can speculate on these and how adversaries may want to affect human activities on a number of levels or affect human relations on a number of scales and influence our postures in the context of national security. Finally, I wanted to note, and Jim is also someone to discuss this with, certainly using these kind of technologies as a weapon of mass destruction is possible. I think what we would be more likely to see as use of this as a weapon of mass disruption. And so we could see gray zone type activities where adversaries would push in the use of these kinds of things, but not cross very defined red lines. And they could be very highly effective in this, particularly because they could use them covertly and they'd be very difficult to attribute. In particular, if we were able to attribute them or could speculate on, who was the most likely actor involved, what would the appropriate response be? That is another thing we would need to think about. I draw your attention again to the reference Jim's got there, and we can talk more about this. So I'm going to stop there and leave it for Q&A, and I will turn it back over to the moderator to take the Q&A session. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone.